I would argue that it's integral to that good style of living that drinking be part of it. Um, and a healthy love of drinking actually flows from that lifestyle, which is contrary to what our Protestant brothers and sisters might believe. They don't tend to be as happy as us in that regard. Why is that?
So, the general culture of this nation has at its root Protestantism, and particularly Calvinism, as that's who the Pilgrims were. The first people that came over in 1620, at least the ones that we all remember about the first Thanksgiving and all of that, the ones that
Mm-hmm.
established the colonies in Massachusetts and Connecticut and maybe Rhode Island. I'm not sure. But at the very least, the colony of Massachusetts, which is ultimately the fundamental American way of life. That is the fundamental philosophy of America, comes out of Massachusetts. Whether you like it or not, that's where it comes from. They were Calvinist, Puritans. They were fleeing religious persecution from Anglican England because Anglicans and Calvinists do not get along. Anglicans still want to have, without recognizing papal authority, they still want to kind of have the way of life of Catholics.
They are the
Calvinists,
denomination that's like closest to Catholicism. So
technically speaking, except for the women priests, which will be another thing. But the Calvinist way of life. So here's how Calvinists think. Calvinism ultimately boils down to there are a certain amount of people that are going to be saved, positively, absolutely, and a certain amount of people that won't be.
predestination, we call it.
This is kind of true because God knows who will come to heaven and who will not, which there is a modern heresy that is kind of springing off of this, that when heaven is at capacity, the end of the world will come and then everybody will just go to hell.
What a
No.
beautiful way of looking at the world.
No, Catholics aren't supposed to be depressed. Anyway, so here's what happens with the Calvinist mentality of things. When you believe that you are one of the saved, because that's what all Calvinists believe, that they are of the saved, which Calvinism evolved into modern evangelicalism, ultimately. The Calvinists believe that they are the saved, so they are going to behave like the saved. And ultimately that boils down to Christianity being about more about what we don't do rather than what we do. So the idea of Calvinism, Puritanism, which is an even more radical form of Calvinism, if that is even possible, which, by the way, is why they're not still alive. That's why the Puritans aren't still around. Puritanism basically is absolutely no drinking, no dancing, and no fun. No fun of whatever kind at all. And I remember a good numerary of Opus Dei, a Spaniard, who came in the nice variety of Spaniard. Apparently, there's only two varieties of Spaniard. They're either assholes or they're just the sweetest and nicest people you'll ever meet. This one was of the second variety. But he basically said in a group meditation that we had, this is back when I was in high school, in a group meditation that we had, a group sort of, we just called it a talk. Basically, he defined a Puritan as someone who, I'll try to do his accent, who cannot stand the thought of anyone, anywhere, at any point, any place in the world, having fun. Puritans cannot stand fun. They cannot stand celebration. And there are two books that I read in high school and in junior high that sort of enlightened me as to the culture of the Puritans. One is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne.
A classic by many estimations.
A classic, yes. It is worth one read. Because the only thing that I remember about that is it took an entire chapter for the minister to walk across town. I also think that I was way too young and way too immature to be able to appreciate it at the time, because I think I read that in like 8th grade. That's like senior in high school material.
I know I read it at one point too. I can't remember when. So
The other book is called The Witch of Blackbird Pond. And that book is about this girl who lives in a Puritan community who befriends this old woman that lives at Blackbird Pond, and everybody calls her a witch. And they start bringing false accusations against her for being a witch, but she's just an old widow who lives by herself. And it kind of presents this image of the Puritans that I think is reasonably accurate, because the Puritans also had the Salem witch trials, which they might have had a couple of witches. They may have had a few, because that is actually what witches try to do. They go into the mountains and into the woods. They want to separate themselves from society, but they tend to form covens, groups of just themselves, where they practice their witchcraft and their sorcery and whatever else they do.
yeah.
And one of these days, we may have a podcast about the Salem witch trials, because that's actually a very interesting story. But so there are two things about Puritans. One is that they think life is supposed to be miserable, and that you're not supposed to ever have any fun of any kind, because all fun leads to sin, and anything that can lead to sin ever has to be completely eradicated from your life. And you basically just have to be a miserable idiot with a stick up your ass.
Unfortunate.
How very unfortunate. The other thing is that they cannot stand seeing people not live the way they do. Like, it actually fills them with rage to know that somebody exists, at least within their reach, that does not live the way that they do. Which is part of the whole story of the Witch of Blackbird Pond, is that this woman is different from all of them, and a few bad things happen in the town, so they want somebody to blame, so they start blaming her. They say that she's a witch and she's put a curse on all of them, when really she's just this poor old widow that wants to be left alone.
Sounds like I would get into a lot of trouble in a Puritan town. And as long as I'm just passing through, that'd be fun.
Oh, they're the kind of people that would probably burn us at the stake. Because Puritans also tend to think that Catholics are warlocks and sorcerers, and that think that the Catholic Church itself is the whore of Babylon. That's why I said that modern evangelicals are descended from Puritans.
How very unfortunate for them, more than me.
And these are some of the people that founded our nation, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, so basically it boils down to, and again, I'm going to steal a phrase from my friend Sarah: no drinking, no dancing, no fun. Because at any time you're happy or having fun or being entertained, you're evil. You're doing something evil, because near occasion of sin and just anything that can potentially lead you to sin in its excess must be evil.
Mm-hmm.
If drinking too much is bad, then drinking at all must also be bad. Which is kind of where we get this general idea, and it lasts up until the middle of the last century.